talk about the Sam Darnold trade to the Carolina Panthers. How good will Sam Darnold be with the Panthers? What do you think of the reaction? Give me your thoughts.
Okay, so yeah, I can break down. I have the details pulled up. So basically, the Panthers traded a 2021 sixth, 2022 second rounder, and fourth rounder. So they traded 3 picks. They got Darnold back. They already took his 5th-year option, which is, I believe, around $20 million. It's fully guaranteed, though.
Yep.
It looks like Teddy Two Gloves is no longer. That experiment did not last very long. I like this a lot for the Jets and the Panthers, to be honest with you. I think the Jets, like, the fact that they got a 2nd, 4th, and 6th, which I might be someone who overvalues picks, but I think that's a really good haul for teams knowing that they wanted to trade him. Like, usually when a team is, like, strapped and, you know, the player wants out and the team wants out of the player, like, they lose leverage in that sense. So I was kind of surprised at, like, that overall trade package. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think they got a lot for him.
I
thought Sam Darnold's trade package would be like a late 3rd, and like a 6th, or a 4th, a 4th and a 5th, or something like that. Like I didn't think there was a big market for Sam Darnold. I mean, Ian Rappaport tweeted that Washington and the Niners did their due diligence, but Carolina was like the sole suitor for Sam Darnold. I was surprised. I think the Jets got a haul. But from Carolina's perspective, Blake, talk to me. I mean, I know a lot of people in the media are high on Sam Darnold. I'd argue that a lot of it is due to the fact they had a very high pre-draft perception on the man, and they don't want to be wrong with it. Exactly. Talk to me. Like, Adam Gase was, I mean, according to everybody, Adam Gase was the sole problem. Is Sam Darnold now going to reach his full potential, which to some means he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL now that he goes to a fantastic situation in Carolina with Matt Rule, Joe Brady, and those 2 special receivers?
Yeah, so I think we can talk about, like, just him moving from the Jets and, like, his tenure. So he was there for 3 years. His best season, they went 7-9 with him, and he missed a few games with injury. He had mono for like 5 games, which was just, like, you know, pretty random.
3.
It was 3 games
with mono. Yeah.
Okay. And then the pairing just never worked. I'll say this: I don't think Adam Gase was helped by what the Jets gave him, and I don't think Sam Darnold was helped by Adam Gase or what was around him by any stretch of the imagination. They don't really have a great O-line. Don't really have weapons. Running back's not good. Defense isn't the best. So I think all that stuff is definitely not good for any quarterback. And going from Frank Gore and LaMichael Pirine to Christian McCaffrey is about the biggest upgrade you can possibly get in the running back position. He's reunited with Robbie Anderson, and there's already a little connection there. DJ Moore's solid. Taylor Moton, he's a beast at right tackle. Their O-line is otherwise not probably – it's probably not worse than the Jets. I'd say it's better. So obviously the situation is significantly better. And I think here's the thing too is, like, getting out of the New York media is probably just, like, nice for him in general. Being on the Panthers, like, besides when they had Cam, like, you don't hear about them too much in the media just because it's not as big of a city. So I think they'll be solid. And I think he's probably better than Teddy. I really do. I know you aren't either the biggest Teddy fan. And he has shown potential, right? It's just he does make a lot of mistakes still.
Yeah, he's got potential. I don't know. Like, I think he's going to be better for sure. Like, I like how you touched on the fact that, like, Gase is obviously a terrible coach. I think everybody with 2 eyes knows that. But McKagnon was just the worst GM ever. I mean, the picks he made, like Jachai Polite in the 3rd round, the signing of Trumaine Johnson, CJ Mosley signing, like, those just have not worked for the Jets. And so, like, that's where, when I look at Gase, like, yeah, you're a terrible coach, but geez, the personnel they gave you to work with was terrible, right? And that's where with Sam Darnold, like, I think he's going to be a lot better. I don't think he's the Ryan Tannehill story. I think Tannehill was a better quarterback with Adam Gase before he tore his ACL than Sam Darnold has ever shown in the NFL. Yeah. And now Darnold's still 23. I think he can be a good player. I think he's in a really, really great situation in Carolina. We're going to talk about how their offensive line is pretty good. It's not bad. they can shore it up with a pick, and we'll talk about it in just a couple minutes. But their receivers are damn good. I love DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is awesome. I think Robbie Anderson is really, really good. And I think they can draft one more guy to replace Curtis Samuel, who's also a stud in my opinion. So they're going to have a real nice supporting cast around him. Joe Brady is a solid play caller. I think ultimately, I don't know if we're talking potential. I don't know if Sam Darnold just becomes this top 10 quarterback, but I think he maybe becomes a viable starting quarterback, which he's not looked like in his time with the Jets. He's not looked like a very good player. Like, that's the reality of the situation with Sam Darnold. Like, is he talented? Is he young? Was he dealt the worst possible hand? Absolutely, to all three questions. But it's like Carson Wentz from last year. Coaching wasn't great. Receivers weren't great. Offensive line wasn't great, but the quarterback play was also bad. That's just how it is. So from that standpoint, I think that Darnold has ways to go. And if he improves into a top 10 quarterback, his improvement will be unprecedented. But if he becomes a viable starter and a consistent starter, I think that's good enough. And I think Carolina's slowly putting together a really, really good team around him that they can make the playoffs with Sam Darnold even next year.
Yeah, and I did want to touch on that too. Like, when you watch him, like, he's obviously really, really big. Like, this dude will go at, like, linebackers and safeties, and he'll go, like, head first and, like, try to truck them and stuff. Like, he's a big dude, obviously, physically. He has a pretty strong arm. Like, he can make throws that, like, you'll watch and you'll be like, okay, like, I can see why people – like, I can see why he went third and why the Jets traded up for him and why people still hold faith. Like, he will make some insane throws. I know on Twitter circulating was that one throw against the Niners where it was, like, across his body, like, 20 –
it's a big-time throw.
20 yards downfield. Yeah, but for every one of those, you'll hear him saying on the sidelines, like, I'm seeing ghosts, and throw it into double coverage or, you know, make a bad play, basically. So it's just the consistency has not been there at all, really. Like, that's the trouble for me. Is he hasn't really been better.
I would say that he hasn't been a consistent quarterback since his time at USC. I remember him coming out in the draft. I mean, we talked about him, I think, quite a bit. We talked about him, Rosen, because those quarterbacks were a great conversation. But people were talking about him like he was the next Andrew Luck. I mean, that comparison to me was just reckless as Sam Darnold's play at USC his senior year. He was always a little out of control, a little reckless, didn't function really well within the pocket, was really just looking to run out of the pocket and make plays. He's really talented, but I think that those things need to be kept into account. There's a lot of polish that needs to go into his game, and that polish hasn't happened since his sophomore year in USC, and hopefully he'll start to get better, and maybe he'll be a really viable starter in the NFL because he's definitely that talented, and time is definitely on his side.
Definitely. And then I did want to throw in one more thing. If you guys watched that Broncos game, like, that was supposed to be just a terrible game. Like, the Broncos and Jets were not that good. The man looked like Lamar Jackson. I think it was the opening drive. It was 3rd and long.
The one run, the 45-yarder or 50-yarder, yeah.
It was ridiculous. And there's other throws where, like, you see his arm talent just pop off, and you're like, wow, like, not many people can actually do that. And it's to the likes of, like, Brashad Perryman, Braxton Berrios, Jamison Crowder, who is actually good, but he's throwing to some no-name guys out there and, like, making them look good, and you always see him running in the pocket. So, you know, it'll be interesting, like, how much better the situation is,
right,
and, like, he can improve.
Right, and you brought up those flashes, right? And that's what it's always been with him. It's the flashes, and people get super sucked into the flashes with him, but the consistency just hasn't been there, right? And I think that's going to be the interesting thing. Can he finally get that consistency? Because the bottom line is Joe Flacco played more consistent than Sam Darnold in the little time he played last year. Now, the Adam Gase offense is suited more for Flacco, but the bottom line is Flacco played like a more consistent and confident quarterback, which Sam Darnold didn't play like.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Let's transition